What does the Constitution?
It's the power of the people. Join me, Consolata Chibalonza, every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on Know Your Law, only on EBN TV. Indeed, Know Your Law with Consolata Chibalonza. That is my name, and it is about that time we get to understand how our country works. Remember that Kenya is guided or guarded by the Constitution, and everything we do must be informed by the Constitution. However, we have had instances where people want to be right, or they want to have their rights fulfilled or fought for, and they have not been able to access the judicial system either because of one reason or the other. That is what we're going to talk about. Feel free to share your comments, your views, your questions, because with me is none other than Peter Wasaga, who will introduce himself. He'll tell us who he is, what he does, and then we can get right into the discussion. Welcome very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
So please introduce yourself.
First and foremost, I want to thank you for inviting me.
Welcome.
And for having this an amazing program to just provide simplification to the viewers and to just make known to them the avenues they can follow in order to enforce their rights, in order to also report on any violation of such rights. So my name is Peter Wasaga, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. I practice in the firm of Peter Wasaga and Company Advocates based in Nairobi. In vast areas of law, including constitutional law, conveyancing, succession, criminal law, and employment. So yes, that is who I am in brief.
So thank you very much, and we will get right into it. The biggest misconception that we've had is that law is expensive, and I'm not talking about the studying of law, but talking from a point of acquiring legal services, that it is very expensive. Very many cases I know and I have seen around, people get maltreated, mistreated, any kind of wrong treatment they'll get out there that is reportable, but they won't do it because either they feel they're too poor, or the person who was mistreating them is richer than them. So they feel like even if they go to court, they'll just fail. So what do you think? Is it true?
You can look at it from so many angles. But first thing first is that ignorance of the law itself is no defense. So we need first, and that's why I started by applauding you for having this program here, so as to expose these things. They say there is an important notion that getting an advocate to act for you in a matter would cost you an arm. But that is not the case. You better look at it from the flip side. And this is because Kenyans will have shortcuts. And when you follow the shortest and the shortest route, which is not actually the route, you are likely to have a very expensive outcome. No wonder we say cheap is very expensive. You have seen houses being demolished because the right procedures were not followed, because of the so many brokers who would come and lie to the public that getting an advocate would be very expensive, and we can get you this thing done by not going through the entire process. But later you see, from such misrepresentation, you get to enter into a transaction without following the due diligence, without following the law. And then when you are exposed, you have nowhere to run to. And then your investments are now being brought down, like what you saw happening in Morocco. So it may appear expensive, but if you when you understand the outcome and the dangers that you are seeing, then you will appreciate that legal representation is actually the best, and it's very affordable. It's not expensive, it's affordable. Why? Because fees are charged based on a guideline that is provided by the law. There is the Advocates Act, And under the Advocates Act, there is the Advocates Remuneration Order, which actually gives the minimum amount that an advocate can charge. The advocates are human,
yes,
and you can always negotiate and agree on a plan of payment.
Okay.
For instance, you will need to pay a deposit of this amount for me to start the process, and then you can agree on a very flexible mode of payment. We also, advocates also do pro bono services.
Yes. And
pro bono services depending on the need.
Okay.
And they have, the government can also, because if you look at the rights of an arrested person under Article 49, the law provides that every arrested person has the right to access to an advocate, especially those who are charged with capital offences, such as robbery with violence and murder. So with this, they will get free legal representation from the state. The state will get them an advocate, and the state will pay a very small stipend to that advocate. So basically what we need to understand is what is the outcome, where are we heading to, what do we intend to achieve, and is it worth cutting a shortcut, and what are the likelihood, or what are the likely implications of such shortcuts.
Thank you very much. You've brought something very new that I also didn't know about there being an act that dictates what or how much is being paid. But again, I'm going to go to that local or common mwananchi, as they're called, someone who has no capital offense per se, but for example, a person, a John Doe, right? A John Doe has a piece of land. For example, you have a piece of land somewhere, but then your land is just adjacent to someone who's more powerful and richer than you are, and you have nothing, you have no money. Maybe it was just an inheritance. So you literally do not have a means of payment, all right? Then you get to this point where you really need to have representation so that you can get your land back. So how does such a person acquire the services of being legally represented in court, should the need be?
Of course, there is the avenue of self-representation, all that will come at a cost as well, because you may not understand the legal procedures, you may not also understand the law itself and how to frame the issues.
Yes.
About cases, cases are won on evidence.
Yes.
It's not on the emotions, it's not on the many tiers, it's on the evidence. For instance, when it comes to land, there are acts that regulates the acquisition and administration of land in Kenya. There is the Land Act of 2012, there is the Land Registrations Act. Specifically, the Land Registrations Act, reading from section 26, 25, 26, 27, going forward, there is the provision that a title is a conclusive proof of ownership. And the same can only be defeated if that the title was acquired by fraud, misrepresentation, or mistake, which the registered owner was a party to. So there is no point of losing your property if you have a genuine title. And number two, if a property is owned by your grandfather, the law provides for the procedures of transmitting that property from your grandfather who is deceased or from your father who is deceased to you. And this is a process in law, we call it transmission. You have to go through succession, and an administrator is being appointed, which an advocate can assist you with the legal advice. An administrator, then after administrator is appointed, there is the aspect of now applying for that grant, confirmation of that grant. And after the grant is confirmed, the grant will provide the schedule of distribution of all the properties of the deceased. It is from that point that now the property is to be transferred now from the administrator to the beneficiaries. So my point is, going back to your question, is now how is this property being, how is the rightful owner being deprived of this property? So if you have the right title, if you acquire the property the right way, then you should not be denied the right to enjoy that property. So the problem, we go back to the problem, the common problem, where we love cutting through shortcuts.
Yeah.
And so you skip certain stages or certain essential legal processes that leaves you exposed. So that the rich, as you call them, they are not actually the rich. They can easily now come and now use that to pin you down. For instance, you just got a representation, someone just told you this property is available, you didn't do the searches, you didn't do maybe the green card search to know the history of the property from the time it was acquired, how it has moved, you didn't even buy the maps to go to the survey to confirm the coordinates and whether the because you may be surprised.
Yes.
There are those who are sold for properties in Buruburu. They think their properties are in Buruburu, yet the properties are in Lakisama. Get my point?
Yeah.
So you need to engage a surveyor. So when you skip such processes, again, for any contract in disposition of land, you don't buy land as though you're buying bread. You don't buy land as though you're buying milk. The law is very clear. Section 3 of the Law of Contract Act provides that any contract in disposition of land must be in writing. See, if you go to an advocate, he'll be able to advise you.
Yes.
Number 2, it must be executed by the parties. In this case, the parties are the vendor and the purchaser. Then it has to be witnessed. So you have entered into a negotiation, you have paid your money, there is no agreement you signed, there is no transfer form you signed, you've not done your due diligence, you have not proceeded to the land registry to transfer, there is no caution on this property. Someone else comes, buys this property, is bright enough to engage an advocate who knows it from somewhere, he proceeds to register this property, my property. You see, that is ignorance of the law, which is not defense.
Yes.
So there must be a way out. You can agree on a payment plan, even if it is part of that property. You get my point?
Yes.
You can agree on a payment plan. It may not be immediately, but it can be widespread, provided there are direct disbursements and there is an agreement that is written down. Though sometimes the law fronts upon that, there is a rule against tampering, and you get into an agreement with an advocate that upon conclusion of this case, then you'll be paid. Sometimes it's a loss.
Yeah.
But one thing that I must assure you that there is always a way out, provided you have genuine documents, provided you have, you see, an injustice may only last for a period, but it may not last forever. You see, you get those who are in power, like you saw what happened with the former president when the property that had been wrongfully alienated from an individual was returned back. And there are so many court cases. So if it is illegal from the word go, you can never make it right. And just to also conclude, with the knowledge, when you involve an advocate, and of course you'll agree on the fee, it will also shorten the time and the back and forth. For example, in succession matters, there are certain important legal the legal requirements that must be satisfied. For instance, because I know these are some of the issues that affect common man. They say that, before getting to what they say, in succession, for example, you need to identify the beneficiaries. If you leave one beneficiary out, someone will come with an objection.
Yes.
And you will spend an entire maybe months to try to sort out this
the conflict,
this objection. So as I conclude on your question, normally there is the law, and the law is known by those who have gone through it, and they are able to advise you. For instance, you as an individual, there is a likelihood that you will be arrested, whether it could be traffic offense.
Yes.
You must know the rights of an arrested person under Article 49 of the Constitution. And these things are the advocates know. You find people self-incriminating themselves because they do not want to get an advocate, and they rather want to eat with the police. You get my point?
Yes.
And you see the work of the police ends at the police station. The next step is the investigating officer appearing in court as a witness, which now the advocate has to cross-examine. So there are things that you must really appreciate from the first go to get that legal advice. For example, when someone dies, the property has to go through succession before you can distribute it, or before you can deal with it. You find someone has advised you to deal with it anyhow. Then you are cited for intermeddling. You get my point? Then, of course, as an employee, there is a likelihood that you may be terminated.
Yes.
And you may be terminated wrongfully. You see, in termination, you look at the procedure of termination and the fairness of the termination. So the termination may be very fair, but if the procedure is faulted, then you can claim in court. It also may be, the procedures may have been followed, but the termination was unfair. You can get damages in court. So some of these things you need an advocate to take you through. The fees, leave it alone. You will have to agree.
Yeah. Okay. And before we continue, you mentioned something about time. Why does it take so long, especially for land issues, to be resolved? I remember there was a time one of the leaders, MP Babu Owino, just to quote him, to paraphrase what he said, let whatever happen, as long as we know at the end of the day, it will take 50 years. So if they want to go to court, let them go to court. In 50 years' time, you will have already planted, harvested, done, lived your life, died, and maybe your children will continue with the case. Why does it take so long to solve such issues?
Like I said, it's the complications that we all create. And again, I can apportion some of the problems to the judiciary. And this is because you see every application, there's been a lot of backlog in the judiciary. And that's why even the small claims courts were created to deal with small matters, so that the magistrate courts and the high court and the other courts can deal with these matters conclusively without being held down with these issues. But like I told you, in every suit, there could be applications. And applications may take time, depending on the swiftness of the parties. Because normally sometimes it's not the court. It is the parties who keep adjourning these matters. And they may adjourn this matter, one, because they have not been paid. They may adjourn these matters because the other parties may not be ready, or they may adjourn these matters because a client has not supplied documents, or a client has not been very much cooperative. So if clients can be very much cooperative and they can be willingly give out the full information to the advocates, then, and again with the administration now that is being channeled to the judiciary, we will be able to move. Of course, now the other thing is that we can also, what I'm also seeing happen. You see, it's the magistrate courts, then you go to the high court, then you go to the court of appeal. There are timelines which have been provided for certain matters to be concluded. You get my point? So yes, it may take long, but now depending on the parties' cooperation, depending on the advocates, and depending on the number of applications in that case. So there are so many determinants.
Well, thank you very much. In case you're joining us right now, this is EBN TV and the show is Know Your Law, and we are trying to see how accessible is the court, and with me is Peter Wasaga, and we're trying to just demystify the rumors or the claims that indeed acquiring justice is indeed expensive. One, Cynthia Nanjala, is saying, unfortunately, the courts is touted as that of the rich. To think about the cost of hiring a legal representative, filing the petition is a whole financial headache. And picking from what she has said, there's also the issue of opening a file. What is that all about? It is believed it is very expensive just to open the file. This is not even representation. Just to have a file in your name is hectic and expensive.
What is it? Opening a file? Yes. I would say instructions fee. I think the client, it's an agreement with your advocate. I work with clients, both the rich and the poor. And both of them are able to access Section 48 provides for the access to justice by any person. I think the first thing that we should look at is what is in it for me. What is the end result? For instance, if you today have if you want something urgently today, let's say it's a medical appeal, if you need it urgently, you will get it.
Yes.
Because you prioritize it.
Yes.
So if you prioritize it, you get it. If you do not prioritize it,
you cannot
lose
get it. Yeah.
So let's look at the end result. Let's look at what we are likely to lose. But now with regards to opening the file, you see we don't charge clients the same. Clients are not charged the same. Their clients are charged for a demand letter, I'll charge them 150,000, 200,000, a million. Their clients for a demand letter, I'll charge them 5,000. You get my point?
Okay. Yeah.
So depending on the complexity of your case, we charge fee depending on the complexity of the case, depending on the contention of the case, and depending on the count. If it's a criminal offense, the number of counts in that charge sheet.
Okay.
So what we need to demystify is that legal representation is expensive. It is not expensive. You are not required to pay that money at a go. Like what I do in farm, I'll request for the deposit, request note, to just get started in the matter. Then we can agree on the payment plan. And that is what most advocates do. They agree on the payment plan. That now at the point of starting, this is our fee. You'll pay me 20% or 50% or 70% for the start. Then after this time, you pay me this and this. My sister Chibalonza, it's all about agreement with your advocate.
Okay. All right. And I think guys, this is an interesting conversation, and I would love to go on and on and on, but we're behind time and we have to call it a close. Thank you very much, Peter, for your time. Thank you very much for each and every person who has been able to tune in. Let's keep the conversations going. And Peter, just very briefly, maybe where can people get you? Where, if there are other questions, are we allowed to get to you?
You are allowed to get to me. Can get to me through my offices at Christian Center Stars. You can also call me through my number.
Yes, please.
07 02 936 783.
All right.
So any conveyance, succession, and we'll be able to agree on those issues. Just to demystify that fact that legal representation is expensive. It's not expensive. It is affordable and proportionate to what is in it for that transaction.
Awesome. And you cannot afford to fail to visit the court once in a while. You need to know your law, and that's why we are here. My name is Consolata Chibalonza. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please share the link with friends and family. Let's keep the conversations going on our social media platforms. We will answer what we can and what we cannot. Indeed, we will have Peter answer that on our behalf. Until next time, God bless. Have a good night.
The 2010 Constitution, as of the 27th of August, became the rule of law. What rights do you have? What does the Constitution